Today we are talking about the myth of Sisyphus. This is part 5 in Important Ideas in Philosophy. And if you're new to this series is a series I'm doing of bite-sized ideas of somewhat philosophical importance, somewhat what I like, and yeah, stay tuned for more. The idea we're talking about today is you must imagine Sisyphus smiling. And this really encapsulates the entire philosophical system of Albert Camus, who is a French existentialist or absurdist. There's various semantic differences. I like to consider him absurdist. People like to consider him existentialist. I'll explain the definitions very quickly so that we can get into the interesting stuff. So, existentialist is somebody that believes you can assign meaning because you value something, because something is important to you, that it gives your life purpose. Camus was an absurdist who believed that there was no such thing as meaning in this world. And more or less what he's saying with this is that because there's no meaning, that's what gives it meaning. Because you're not destined to do something, because there's not a set in stone, path that you have to take, then you have the ultimate freedom to do what you want. And in essence, that could be either the most liberating thought or the most haunting thought. And really that's what he's saying when, the myth of Sisyphus is a guy that basically, does something that the gods don't want him to do, and he's destined to push a rock up a hill and it's going to fall every single day, but every single day he has to do it again. And really what Camus is saying is finding peace in the monotony, finding purpose in the monotony, finding joy in the monotony. Schopenhauer said something very interesting about this idea somewhat. It's that the entire world is suffering, but the brief moments of pleasure that we have make it all worth it. And overall, I think that encapsulates the idea fairly perfectly, but let's explore some of Camus' more intricate ideas, because I think that's the general overview. And I think if you understand what I just said, that's a lot of his absurdist philosophy put there. But, we'll give some case studies. So the 3 case studies he gives in The Myth of Sisyphus are first. Actually, I don't know the order. I don't remember the order anymore, but these are the 3. The first is the actor, which is the person that spends their entire lives pretending to be someone else, becomes known for being someone else, and in the end dies being known for someone else. And everything that they did was to put forward this false persona to gain fame, to gain accolades, do all of these things for the sake of people to know them, but nobody ended up knowing them. And it's one of the most ironic and hilarious things, and you think about every single actor, how this is their main goal, and in the end it's so futile. And it's really funny to analyze it this way, because it just goes to show that nothing's permanent, nothing is going to remain forever, everything will eventually fade one day. And it's, you have a day you were born, you have a day you die, and it's what you do in the middle that means anything. And it's not so much the accomplishments, because no accomplishment you ever leave can ever stand the test of time. And this is something that we'll continue to explore through the rest of the video, but it's very funny to start breaking down the ideas of fame, the ideas of wealth, the ideas of doing things for the sake of doing them. The next person that he explores is the Don Juan archetype, the person that, tries to win their fame and fortune and status by, being with as many people as possible. And, in the end, this is a person that usually becomes a monk, that usually becomes a person of solitude, because they've experienced so much that they realize that they need to just be with themselves. And it's a very funny thing, because you'll see so many people that were very active, we'll say, in their younger years, that eventually become alone, eventually become hard, and eventually become sad because they overdid things. And I think there's certainly something to be said in that. There's certainly something to be said in that kind of lifestyle and what it turns you into. But the last one, which I think is perhaps the most interesting, is that of the conqueror, that of Alexander the Great. And I think this is something that, in one way or another, people kind of deal with on a daily basis. In one way or another, people kind of, to their own varying degree, struggle with this path of life and this absurdist worldview. And really what it's saying is that, the moment that Alexander the Great or Caesar died, their empire died too. That the moment that those people did what they did and went out the way they went out, their legacy eventually began to fade that day. Because the thing that they left eventually was thrown into turmoil. I'm not so keen on my history that I can tell you exactly what happened to Alexander the Great, but there's a reason that we don't all, call our heritage to Carthage. he didn't continue to conquer the world once he was gone. The moment that he died was the moment that that conquest ended, and the moment that his name began to fade. And the funniest thing is that there's going to be a day and age where people don't know Alexander the Great, don't know Julius Caesar, don't know Genghis Khan, don't know any sort of people of the likes of Napoleon or Shakespeare or anyone. And the truth is that everything eventually fades to dust. Every accomplishment you ever have, anything you ever conquer. So going out and conquering the world for the sake of prolonging your legacy will not do anything. For the sake of seeking some permanence beyond your life. Because in essence, that's what conquest is. It's you trying to create something that extends your legacy, you trying to live on past your mortal days. And in essence, it's impossible because, you know, no matter how big of a mark you leave on this world, you will always fall short because there will always be the sands of time to wash them away. And it's very, in certain ways, this can be a bleak outlook on life, but in other ways, I think Camus found a little bit of happiness in it. I think he found a more realistic way to live life, because when you put so much focus on the end goals of things, when you drive your entire life for a means and all you want is that, you know, piece of land or that trophy or that title or that, you know, status, like whatever it is that you're driving for, and then you get it, you're just on to the next thing. And, you know, if your life becomes about the ends instead of the way that you get there, it really diminishes the importance of things. It really diminishes the purpose of things. And, you know, all I want to leave you with is stop worrying so much about the things you do in this world. Worry about the people that you spend your time with. Worry about the people that you enjoy your time with. Worry about the things that you like doing and having fun with that. And, you know, as Camus said, you must imagine Sisyphus smiling. In spite of all the monotony, in spite of all the tedious activities we have to do on a daily basis, in spite of the fact that once we accomplish a problem, there will be a new problem, we must still find satisfaction in the daily toil. With that said, part 5 of the series, hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully this was something that you found interesting. I definitely find Camus interesting. He's like on that like second tier of philosophers for me. I really do enjoy a lot of his ideas, but to me, he's just not as interesting as Emerson or Nietzsche or Jung or people like that. And it's just, it sucks. I try to talk about him as much as I can, but he doesn't always quite come up into the back of my head to pull information from. But with that said, if you guys want to read my book, there will be a link in the description for that. I don't have it with me. I can't show it to you, but it's very good apparently from what people have been telling me. I don't even want to read it because I'm going to go back and be very critical of it. But with that said, love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. Catch you in the next one.